CBS News political reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns is here now. She has more on one Congresswoman's push to solve this issue. Caitlin, good morning.
Good morning.
This morning, I know you attended a meeting with Congresswoman Rosa DeLauro, who is working on a bill to address this shortage. What can you tell us?
Yeah, well, DeLauro is the chair of a subcommittee that oversees the FDA. So she is a really critical player in the legislative response to all of this. And I asked, a question that I think many parents around the country, including myself, who is a mom of a formula-fed 8-month-old, how does this happen in the United States of America, where you have one company shutting down production, and that leads to a shortage of formula? And she said essentially that this is a system where only 4 companies have, the vast majority, 95% of the market share. And so when one goes under, there isn't really a plan in place to make sure that production keeps up. And now there are a confluence of factors. Supply chains have been an issue, obviously, in the pandemic. Abbott, which manufactures formula, what basically happened was there was contamination in their plant. They had to shut down and voluntarily recall their products, and that led to what we're seeing now. I also asked, who is accountable here? What is the culpability of the FDA? And she said that's a really critical point here, because this is kind of what happened. There are safety issues and supply chain issues, but focusing on the safety issues, she said Abbott knowingly sold contaminated product, and it took a whistleblower report to let the FDA know that there was this contamination in the plant, and the FDA waited 4 months before telling the public. So she said the FDA dragged their feet before informing the public here. So you have questions about Abbott, and she says she wants the investigation to focus on Abbott, the company, but also on the FDA and why it took so long for the FDA to release this information to the public.
So I'm sure that parents are happy that there's going to be an investigation. I don't think the babies care. I think the babies want their formula like yesterday. So
exactly.
Can you tell us about any other bills maybe lawmakers are working on that could address the shortage immediately?
And that's a really critical point, Anne-Marie, because this is something that I've been experiencing myself for several months. This isn't something that just happened last week. This has been going on for months and months. And so that was another question I posed to DeLauro, was how has it taken this long for Congress and the administration to respond? And she said that, she was pointing to the investigations underway. But here's what Congress wants to do this week as soon as possible to try and alleviate the supply issues. First, DeLauro is going to be shepherding an appropriations bill that will help bring, formula that is manufactured by FDA-approved facilities overseas to come back to the U.S. to try to increase supply here. So that's an appropriations requirement that will take, and they're hoping to introduce that as soon as possible. They are also bringing in the investigation front. Next week, they have called for manufacturers to come. They've called for the FDA chair to come, and they've also asked for Abbott to come in front of Congress. And so far, Abbott has not responded to the inquiry from Congress. So that's something else to watch. What the administration says that they have done, they've tried to cut some red tape to allow for processing. But this, is a key issue, of course, that's been going on for months, and supply issues that Congress is trying to address at this point.
We know FDA Commissioner Robert Califf will also face a congressional committee this week. Earlier on CBS Mornings, he spoke of when he believes we could see the end of this shortage.
We would expect this to gradually get better over the next several weeks, and within really several months to be completely up to normal. But I'd stress that up to normal means 100% of normal. And as long as we're in a reasonable range, it should be entirely possible for families to get their formula increasingly really over the next several days to weeks.
Caitlin, what more do we know about his questioning this week?
Well, what lawmakers on Capitol Hill want to know is how the FDA, knew about the contamination in the Abbott facility and took so long to make the public aware. DeLauro also mentioned that she wants to bring legislation this week that creates new authorizations and new requirements for the FDA. A key point of this also to consider is that plant in Michigan, that Abbott plant that has been shut down, that's awaiting FDA approval to reopen. So even if that is reopened, that will still take 6 to 8 weeks, they've said, before that product can get to a point where it's available on shelves. So hopefully these measures that have been taken will allow quicker production in terms of getting this product to shelves. But again, this is something that parents are needing right now, yesterday, to Anne Marie's point. And so still questions remaining about what can be done and what should have been done to alleviate this.
Yeah, definitely. Hopefully once they replenish the supply, they keep working on the system-wide problems so we don't find ourselves in this position again. Caitlin, thank you very much.